the same area of the sky on the Milky Way was the point of creation of the physical world, and that this was symbolically enacted on the ground by creating almost like a centre of the world. The Greeks used to refer to it as the omphalos, which means the navel, the belly of the world. And of course, in this belly is the seed, or the egg or the babe that is produced and gives life. And that life, as I said, is not just an individual life, but life collectively and the life of the planet, the life of the physical world. Yeah. And I believe that Giza represented this. It represented a point of first creation. This is what the secret chamber is at Giza. It's a womb, it's a tomb of God, but it's also a place of creation, a place of first creation. And what did they say was contained within this place of creation, but some kind of stone, like you have in the underground temples of Egypt, the so-called lingam stones, which represent this point of creation in the world, that still radiate the concept of creation into the outside world simply by, continuing to exist. And this is what I believe is actually to be found at Giza, some kind of stone or crystal that represents the point of first creation. This, I believe, is what's inside that secret chamber. Whether it's still there now or not, I don't know. But I think originally there was some kind of crystal, and that it was there. I say crystal, and the reason I say that is because when we gained access into the caves for the first time, a local tomb guardian came across, and we talked to him, and we said to him, "Do you know about the caves?" And he said that he was aware of them. He said they go for many miles, and we said, "Have you ever been in them?" He said, "No." He said, "I would never go in them because they are haunted by a giant snake called El Hanash. And if you went into them, El Hanash would strangle you to death." And this was enough of a fear to stop him from ever going in there. Now, this was the first time I'd heard the name El Hanash. I've read hundreds of books on Giza and the pyramids and the Sphinx, and this is the first time I'd ever come across this. What I did know is that in Roman times, it was believed that a demiurge, a creator of the world by the name of Agathodaimon, which means the good spirit, a deity in the form of a snake, was said to sleep, repose, or rest beneath the plateau. That was definitely known. Plus, of course, obviously the Egyptian cave underworld has its own snakes. Sometimes, for instance, the soul of the deceased, has to navigate a snake within the underworld, actually going through its body, which is obviously obvious symbolism of passing through a cave where you could actually sort of see the ribbing, of the cave walls, representing like the skeleton of the actual snake itself. So snakes were very strongly associated with caves in ancient Egypt. But here was an Arab-Egyptian legend or tradition that had somehow made its way into the modern day, completely unrecorded. And by chance, 1 month later, I spoke to another member of the local community, this one who did actually have contact with sort of New Age people and whatever, but related another legend to do with El Hanash and the so-called Hall of Records, which stunned me. He said that what had been passed down to him was the fact that El Hanash inhabited the cave underworld at Giza, and that in the heart of it was what he called the Hall of Records, and that many people would try to reach this Hall of Records, which contained a great crystal or diamond that was held in the mouth of this great snake, El Hanash.
Mm-hmm.
And it was said that anybody that came in sight of this snake would be blinded. But one day somebody would come when the end times came, and they would enter into the Hall of Records, and they would be blinded only in one eye. And when this happened, they would then gain the secrets and the power of this crystal or diamond, and good things would happen to them. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
in other words, somebody would eventually achieve, the knowledge and wisdom that was obviously held within this.
Huh.
And I thought this is an incredible story. On its own, it's just another fable. But the fact that we quite independently come across an Arab Egyptian who actually couldn't speak any English and had no contact with New Age people. He was at a part of the plateau and he lived there in a tent and never really came into contact with tourists, and certainly would never be talking about this type of story. Confirmed that El Hanash, was haunting this cave, which he was frightened to go into, a story which presumably he'd never told anybody about. The reason being is that we have not found one person who has actually been in these caves prior to us.
Really? That's amazing.
Because
go ahead.
Sorry, because of the publicity which we have generated in respect to the caves themselves. People have obviously since been down there and they're telling their own stories now. However, we were the first people down those caves, and we have not found any. And to be honest, I find this absolutely amazing that we've not been able to come across anybody else, any Egyptologist, anybody on the plateau, or any local people that have known anything about either the tomb or the caves themselves. It's absolutely remarkable.
It is. It's incredible. And just to clarify this thing again, then, for our listeners here, we're not now talking about the chamber directly under. There is a cavity, if I can put it that way, directly under the Great Pyramid, right? No. But this is not it.
Oh no. And also, I think it's important to emphasise that that's not natural. Although it's obviously cut into the natural bedrock. The subterranean chamber, as it's known, is actually hewn by human tools. What we're in are natural caves that penetrate beneath the limestone bedrock for a distance of at least 15, 20 metres, maybe more. And they actually enter rock which is not the same as that on the surface. There is red powder oozing from the walls, which is almost certainly a form of iron oxide, which was known in the ancient world as ochre, red ochre. Red ochre was a very, very sacred powder used for painting across Africa and in other parts of the world, going all the way back to Paleolithic times, tens of thousands of years before the age of the pharaohs. In fact, some of the oldest pieces of objects with like decorative designs and things like that were actually been made of pieces of ochre stone. But here, underneath the plateau, it oozes from the walls. Red ochre was also sacred to the goddess Hathor, and almost certainly represents her lifeblood within her womb and within her vulva, which is another indication that these caves somehow represent the womb and birth tube of this cow mother under whatever name she was originally called. And that these places were places of birth, places of rebirth, and that, that the memories and the ideas that we have of the Hall of Records may be based on this. I'm not saying that there isn't chambers down there, because clearly there are, and I do believe that they are constructed by human hands, and that they will be found. The other important thing to point out is that we now have pretty firm evidence that these caves